Sorry, I was having technical difficulty. I had to get help logging into my email.
Okay, we're good to go. We're live on YouTube, so.
Perfect. Okay. Well, we want to welcome everybody to the Royse City City Council meeting. We're doing this electronically. I've got a statement here I want to make here in a couple of seconds. I do want to recognize that we do have council members Paul, council member Saxton, council member Wilson, council member Jackson, and council member Burrell all joining us tonight. We have asked council member Jackson if she would go ahead and lead us in a moment of silence and a pledge of allegiance. Ann?
Okay. We please have a moment of silence. Okay, can we please stand and have the pledge of allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And thank you. Appreciate that. Council, let me just read a statement to you. I think it's important. We can surely ask Andy of the significance of this, but let me read this to you. I, Mayor Robert Dando, in accordance with Utah Code Section 52-3-207-4, have determined that conducting a meeting of the Royse City Council chambers presents a substantial risk to the health and safety of those who would be present at the City Council chambers. The basis of this determination is due to the infectious nature and potential dangerous health effects of conducting a contracting COVID-19 virus. There is not sufficient space for the council chambers to provide appropriate, safe physical distancing for the safety of individuals who would attend. Accordingly, on August 18th, 2020 meeting will be held electronically without an anchor location. And I'm signing that document. We'll have it attested here by tomorrow. But I just want to let you know that there's a reason why we're still doing teleconferencing. I should tell you, some areas have defined an anchor position, and they are now conducting open meetings. I'm not convinced yet that we have created an environment yet that creates a safe environment for not only you, but also those who would like to be in attendance with us. And until we find a better solution or the health department advises differently, we'll go ahead and continue to have these electronic meetings. Any questions or comments?
Thank you, Mayor.
Yes,
Okay.
sounds good. Thank you.
Okay,
Yeah,
thank you.
I agree. Yes.
Okay, I'd like to then go ahead and look at the consent items. We have a couple of things here. We have the approval of the June 16th, July 7th, and the July 21st, 2020 Royse City Council meeting minutes. We also have on the consent items the sale of surplus of a 2020 Ford 150 and a 2018 Chevy Silverado 150. The VIN numbers are located on your packet. Council would like to table the consideration, a request for preliminary subdivision approval of the Franson Farm subdivision located at approximately 4514 South, 3100 West. The reason why we need to table that is the notification that went out to the public had the wrong date on it. And as a result of that, there was just a typo error. We have to keep those very formal. We don't want everybody have a right to come back and contest it. And so we felt we just need to resubmit the letter with the proper information to make it accurate. So we're going to table that. It will more than likely come back to you at the next city council. So I'd like to focus on the consent items 1 and 2. Is there any comments about the any of the council meeting minutes?
I have noted a few errors that I've given to typical errors for June 16th and July 7th, but not for July 21st.
Okay, does Morgan have those, Councilmember
Yeah.
Wilson?
Mhm.
Perfect, okay. Anybody else? Okay, Morgan, I have just one. If you'll do me a favor, if you will go to the, I believe, let me make sure I get this right. If you'll go to the July 7th, discussion item G, it's under discussions. We talked about off-street parking. In the fourth paragraph, it left the assumption that that decision is made by the Planning Commission to make an adjustment in terms of curb cutting associated with the current ordinance. The fact of the matter is the Planning Commission will make a recommendation to the City Council, but the City Council will approve a change in that ordinance. I'll send you the wording, okay, to need to just make slight modifications, but it's in paragraph 4, and it needs to state that the Roy City Council will ultimately make the final decision about the approval of modifying the existing ordinance.
Okay,
Council,
thank
is there
you.
anything else we need to cover in terms of the minutes? Okay, hearing none. Is there any issues associated with the vehicles? Any questions about the 2 vehicles about ready to be declared surplus? Okay, hearing none. These are consent items. Therefore, do I have a motion to approve with the appropriate changes in the staff meetings that's been submitted or talked about? A motion to approve the 2 consent items.
I motion to approve the 2 consent items.
Thank
I'll
you.
second it.
Who seconded?
Diane.
Thank you, Diane. Okay, all in favor?
I
Aye.
Perfect, thank you. Okay, we have an action item. We have the public hearing, fiscal year 2021 budget, a consideration of resolution 20-30 approving adjustments to the fiscal year 2021 budget. I believe, Camille, you're going to talk to us about this particular resolution. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. It's great to be with you all this evening to present Resolution 20-30 for your consideration for the fiscal year 2021 budget amendment based on the information that you received in your council packets. This proposed resolution will increase the previously funded fiscal year 2021 budget by $1,049,125 to account for various expenditure and revenue increases. So this budget opening will increase the general fund by $359,094. $78,000 of that is expected to come from the sale of the 2 vehicles that you just approved for surplus, and the remainder will come from fund balance reserves. We had an old air conditioning unit in the recreation building that started to leak and caused mold in their building. The mold remediation costs so far have been approximately $20,000. We're continuing to monitor that situation and ensure all the mold has been removed and that building is safe for employees. So those costs are included in the budget opening. The budget opening also includes a carry forward of about $256,000 from the fiscal year 2020 budget. The council previously approved the purchase of 5 police vehicles, but only 1 has been delivered so far. So based on the delays in manufacturing, we've ordered all 5, but only taken possession of 1. So the fiscal year 2020 budget, we won't spend that remainder. It will go back into fund balance. And then this budget opening will reallocate that funding so that we can continue with the purchase of those 4 police vehicles in the current year budget. We've also included $47,000 for the Public Works and $36,000 for Parks and Recreation to replace the vehicles that were approved for surplus. You just approved the Parks and Recreation vehicle to surplus, and last council meeting you approved a surplus vehicle for Public Works. So we've included funding to replace both of those. And in the Capital Projects Fund, we're proposing that we carry forward the remaining budget from fiscal year 2020 for Parks and Recreation projects. Due to the timing of these projects in our fiscal year ending in the middle of the summer and construction season, the money that was remaining in fiscal year 2020 will go back into fund balance, and this would reappropriate that funding so we can continue those capital projects for Parks and Recreation. We are also proposing a use of that fire equipment reserve that we have in the capital projects fund. The fire department uses turnouts for structural firefighting. So those are those big heavy jackets and hats and helmets and pants and gloves that you see them wearing. When the turnout gear is purchased, it's warranted and it expires. And our turnouts are currently expired, and so we need to purchase new ones to keep our firefighters safe. This budget opening includes 43 sets of gear and 86 turnout duffel bags. So that's what that fire equipment would be proposed to be used for. We're also proposing a use of fund balance reserves in the water and sewer utility fund that would purchase a new vehicle to replace the Public Works vehicle that you just approved for surplus. So that would be a total of 3 vehicles that we'll be purchasing. In the risk management fund, there's a use of retained earnings of $11,800. This is to cover the disposal of 400 pounds of aqueous film forming foam. This foam is what's used in fighting aircraft jet fuel fires. So if there was ever a fire that we had to fight based on an airplane crash, this is the foam that we would use. The shelf life on it is 15 years, and all the foam in the city's possession has now expired. So we need to hire a hazardous waste certified disposal to take care of this. And this funding would take care of all the foam that we have in our possession and safely dispose of it. And then the final budget adjustment is an increase in the fund balance reserves in the park development fund. So it's the same thing as capital projects. Based on the timing of the summer, we didn't get to complete all of the projects that were approved in the park development fund. So we're proposing that $313,000 that goes back into fund balance in fiscal year 2020 be reappropriated so that we can continue those projects now. So with that, we recommend that you get public comment and approve the adjustments proposed in resolution 20-30 to approve or amend the fiscal year 2021 budget.
Thank you, Camille. Let's go ahead and we'll go into public hearing and then we'll ask the council if they have any questions. Do I have a motion then to go into public hearing?
So moved.
So-
Okay,
Second.
thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Okay, we're now in public hearing. Is there any public comments that anybody'd like to make relative to resolution 2030, which is approving adjustments to the fiscal year 2021 budget? Kevin, I believe you may have had an interest in making a public comment. Please go ahead.
Yes, thank you very much. It is interesting to be the only person out of 40,000 that's here commenting on a $1 million adjustment to the budget, but so be it. First of all, just a couple of points to make. First of all, I think it is appropriate to approve these budget changes. My recommendation, I see a lot of good things that should be done with these changes to the budget, so that part I do approve of. But the second point that I would make is I'm somewhat concerned when I look down at the bottom of the document here, where there's a column listing of the expenses. For me, it concerns me when I see the road fund and the transportation fund, and when I see stormwater, solid waste, and stormwater development funds. No adjustments have been made there. I have seen in other municipalities a lack of interest in critical infrastructures like the water, like the roads. And while I'm glad to see 256,000 going to the police department for vehicles, that's one of the very few areas where I would suggest that there be more allocated to law enforcement and then more allocated to these essential infrastructure programs. So I hate bringing up concerns and problems without having a good solid solution. But the only thing I can think of, let's pay more attention to these infrastructure categories so that we don't have to, we don't put ourselves in a position where we only do something about them. We only allocate money to them when something major goes wrong, when something critical happens. So there you go. That's it. All the comment.
Kevin, thank you for your input. And I think both Camille and Matt, you might be able to make comment on that, but those were good comments. Thank you. Morgan, is there anybody else who may have had an interest in making a public comment during this public hearing time?
No, not that I received, Mayor.
Okay, then thank you for the input. Let me do this. Let's go out of public hearing and then we let the council ask any questions and also allow Matt and Camille maybe to address Mr. Homer's comments. Do I have a motion then to go out of public hearing?
So moved.
Okay, thank you. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Joe?
Aye.
Got it. Okay, thank you. We're out of public hearing. Council questions? Matt, Camille, you want to address any of the comments that Kevin made, please?
I'm happy to start. So as far as our utility funds, we recognize that we do have infrastructure that we need to do there. So our plan was, as we mentioned to the city council back in June when you adopted the budget, is we are working on some proposals and we'll bring them back to you at the end of the year. And our plan is to propose to you to increase the rates in water, storm sewer, sanitary sewer, and refuse effective January 1st. There are some costs that we have as a city that we are currently covering, but we didn't feel that it was right to increase those fees right now with so many people who were out of work. So we're evaluating those and we will be bringing those back to council to consider adjusting those budgets and have more money to put toward infrastructure in the utility funds. As far as the storm development fund or the sewer development fund, that funding comes from impact fees. So we have set the original budget that you approved back in June based on how much we expect to receive in building permits and the impact fees for that. We will evaluate that as the year goes on. Typically around January, we have an idea of how those are coming in. And as we promised, we are going to be coming back frequently this year with budget adjustments. So we will continue to monitor. We weren't sure how building permits would continue to come in. So we were conservative in our estimates, so we didn't spend more than we receive. And we will be bringing that back and proposing an adjustment if we see those coming in higher, so we can continue with those infrastructure projects as well.
Okay, good comments. And I assume with that, then you'll provide the detail behind what those expenses will be so that the people like Kevin who have an interest in knowing what those are, we can articulate clearly what's going to be done.
Absolutely.
Perfect. Okay.
Mayor, and maybe Matt will address this, but it's my understanding that we have a long-term plan for improving that infrastructure and that this budget addresses that adequately. Is that correct, Camille?
To her question, the budget did detail a bunch of projects in there that were planning to be done.
Yeah, so I was going to make comment as well, Kevin. I appreciate your comment. I actually got a text message from the police chief. He also very much appreciates your comment as well. But yes, in the utility enterprise funds, if you remember when we adopted the budget, the general fund really was kind of stripped of a lot of things. And the utility enterprise fund did have a lot more capital in it than any other place than the general and then in capital projects. So yes, to your question, Councilmember Burrell, we do have plans of what we need to be fixing in the city, and we're trying very hard to go toward those things. So.
And just for the record, just to make sure I understand, the Class C funds, which is generated primarily because of gas tax revenues, the state took a pretty healthy cut in terms of gas rate or gas tax, in large part because during the first 4 months, 3 months, the COVID-19, there was about a 67% actual usage of the roads. And I think that corresponded to how much gas people used. So we had a lot of people staying home and not generating those taxes. Do we have a pretty good feel what the gas or the Class C road funds are going to be looking like when they come into this year?
Our numbers are going to be looking at more June right now. So we're a couple months delayed. So the numbers are still pretty low, and we did allocate every amount of money that we felt like we had during that time for the road and infrastructures for that.
But we won't have a solid number until we finally start seeing the real numbers coming in.
Yeah, correct.
I do anticipate that it is still going to be lower because our commuting from home is going to go through much longer than we anticipated.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I agree.
Good comment.
Right. Still
Well,
people working from home. Do you know have any idea what our tax increase will be for our water and sewer and
Utilities increase.
We
Utilities?
don't at this point. We have had increases from waste management in our refuse, but we need to look at the other ones. We had set a plan for utility rate increases for water and sewer. We also want to analyze the storm sewer and see what our needs are there. So we don't have any firm numbers to present to you tonight, but we are working on that and we will bring those forward to you as soon as we have them ready.
okay.
Thanks for being so dynamic with that budget. I mean, it is a moving target. It's like, wow, how quick.
Yes, it is.
We recognize that.
I appreciate Mr. Homer's comment, and I second that. One of the things that was highly discussed when we were back at the convention in Washington, D.C. just prior to COVID hitting was there is a wide effort to figure out ways to boost infrastructure, knowing that a lot of cities are faced with aging infrastructure. The federal government's looking at ways, a lot of the lawmakers are looking at ways to help cities out across the country. It's not just a Roy problem. It's a pretty big problem across the nation. And hopefully when we get through this pandemic and they can get back into some resemblance of normalcy, they can get back into pushing some legislation through that will help cities, municipalities boost up their infrastructure replacement programs.
You're right, Joe. That was probably the major topic of conversation.
Okay. Great comments. Anything else you'd like to ask? Any questions you'd like to ask Camille or Matt?
Nope,
Okay.
just great job.
Okay, hearing none, then do I have a motion then to approve resolution 20-30 that approves the adjustments to the fiscal year 2021 budget?
I'll make that motion.
Okay, do I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, Jan, this
That's
is a roll call vote. Morgan?
Councilmember Jackson,
Aye.
Councilmember Paul,
Aye.
Councilmember Saxton,
Aye.
Councilmember Wilson,
Aye.
Councilmember Burrell.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Perfect.
I just want to back up that I appreciate the work Matt and Camille does with their finance background. I feel like the city is in good shape and that they have the city and the citizens' best interest at heart. They do work a lot of extra hours making sure that we're doing the best with the resources we have, even though they're limited at this point. Thank you for your efforts. And really thank you to all the employees of the city. We're blessed to have what we have in this city.
Yeah, great comments.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Okay, this is public comment period. Anybody who basically like to make a comment to the council can do so at this time. Morgan, do we have anybody out there who has an interest in just bringing up any topic, any subject to the council?
No, Mayor.
Okay. Seeing none, we have a presentation by Miss Rose, Margaret Rose. I think I seen Margaret there. There she is. Thank you for joining us. Margaret's involved with the YCC. I'll have her go ahead and explain a little bit about the YCC and how important it is. And so Margaret, if you'd like to share your thoughts, that if you have any charts, please share those with us. Thank you.
Okay. Hi, good evening, everyone. Thanks, Mayor Dandoy, and thanks to all the council members for an opportunity to speak with you tonight. I'm not sure how familiar maybe you are with YCC Family Crisis Center. We're located in Ogden, but we serve all of northern Utah. And I do have, just in the interest of time, I do have a short presentation that I'm happy to share with you, but I also, we can just have it be very informal as well. So I'm happy to go in either direction if there's a desire there, Mayor.
Actually, Margaret, to be honest with you, if you got a short presentation, please share it. I think it'd be great for the council to understand the YCC role and mission in the community, and equally important, what we might be able to help.
Great. I will go ahead and share my screen then. And I assume you can see that, okay?
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
great. Thank you very much. Well, the YCC has been around. We're actually celebrating our 75th anniversary year this year. So we had all kinds of events planned and a gala and, you know, all kinds of 75th anniversary, you know, festivities, open houses and all of that. And so that has certainly changed just in light of, you know, the current circumstances. So, but our mission has not changed at all. Over the last 75 years, we've really been dedicated to saving and changing lives. And our services are primarily formed around supporting and alleviating domestic violence, sexual assault, and homelessness. And we have a whole host of programs and services we provide the community in order to do that. So I'll kind of skip through this, and certainly I hope you have an opportunity to kind of take a look at our website at yccogden.org. There is a lot of information there, much more information about our services that you know is available there. But primarily, just kind of an overview, we have domestic violence and support services, sexual assault and rape victim assistance center, victim advocacy. So victim advocacy comes in the form of protective orders, helping people navigate the social services that are available, and also crime victim reparations, working closely, you know, helping victims through the court system and that sort of thing. So we have a strong victim advocacy program. A child care center for children who are residing in shelter, but also open to the community. And we actually have, that's the bulk of our population in our child care center. We enjoy the highest level of accreditation for child care. And we have about we have space for about 55 children each day. And so we have a very robust program happening there. We education and outreach in the community. So really educating community groups, church groups, school-aged children, youth groups, university groups. It really, anybody who wants us to come and speak, will provide education about domestic violence and about just healthy relationships and sexuality and you know, really sexual assault prevention. And then our outreach programs primarily aimed at different communities, including youth. So we have adult and children's programming and classes on site, a whole housing assistance center that helps with, you might be familiar with, say, the TANF program. So our temporary assistance for needy families. We run a permanent supportive housing for people with disabilities, and just really helping people with rental assistance, all kinds of, you know, case management for people who, you know, really just trying to prevent homelessness, keeping people housed. So it's a strong program we have at YCC. We also have a thrift store. I probably should pose in opposite order. The donation center, we have a drop-off where we take household items and clothing, and then we sell them in the thrift store. And that generates revenue that helps support our clients. So it's a really great community, community-wide endeavor, I guess, where people are able to drop off their good. The individuals who are living in shelter at the time get vouchers to go to the thrift store and get clothing for free. So our clients don't have to pay for any of that. The thrift store is very, very affordable for our larger community. most items are $1. So we try to make it very affordable for our low income individuals. And then we also have a Head Start program on site. We contract with Head Start. That's not a YCC program, but we have it on site and it serves our clientele very, very nicely. So part of the reason that I'm sharing all of these really just information about YCC and all of these services is that over the last few years, we've made really strong agreements with kind of the surrounding cities in the larger sort of Weber area. And many of the cities provide financial support to YCC. These are all services. I think by and large, these are mostly services that cities can't afford. They don't have the capacity to provide these services for their citizens. And so we step in and we provide these services and work very, very closely with your police departments. So if we focus on domestic violence, and this might be a little bit difficult to see, but this kind of gives an overview of what we see related to domestic violence in Utah. And this is statewide. We know about 1 in 3 women experience domestic violence, intimate partner violence in their lifetime. And we see about 42% of adult homicides in Utah are actually related to domestic violence. So nearly half. We know that more than half of homicides end up happening at the hands of a family member, a cohabitant, or an intimate partner. So, and horrifically, about a fourth of those homicides are actually witnessed by children each year. So it's an alarming trend. And we see most of our perpetrators, of course, tend to be men. And that's something that we're really working on with our education and our outreach programs is some relationships and how to have respectful relationships. If we take a look at what is happening specifically in the larger Ogden area, the Weber County area. Can you hear me okay? It says my internet connection is kind of unstable. So yeah, okay, great. So if we took a look at just to kind of drill down just what we saw in YCC over this was actually a year ago, we had about 500 victims of domestic violence and sexual assault who sought shelter at YCC. Of course, there are a whole bunch more we provide services for, but these are individuals we actually provided shelter for, safe housing for, accounting for like 17,500 bed nights. Our shelter is right now, we have about 62 beds, and we run nearly at capacity virtually all year long. COVID has presented a really interesting dynamic, and I'll get to that in a second. But to just kind of give you another overview here, our advocates, the program I mentioned earlier, individuals with victim advocacy, nearly 1,000 people sought victim advocacy assistance in the last year. So if you look at that, 266 protective orders and 461 lethality assessments. The LAP program, it's called the Lethality Assessment Protocol. The LAP program is really, really important and probably one of the most single important, I would say, changes that the state of Utah has made in the last couple of years to alleviate and reduce and mitigate domestic violence and homicide in particular. So I want you to know that your Roy City Police Department participates in the LAP. The LAP is a tool. It was developed in Maryland. It's extremely important, and we've seen great success with it. It's evidence-based program, and it gives officers who are intervening in domestic violence situations a tool to talk with victims and an assessment that they can fill out with victims. It gives them a language that they can use and a tool where they can assess. And it kind of takes the opinion out of it, right? Out of the conversation. So as an example, the officer can sit down with a victim or someone they feel like might be at risk and go through this 11-step question. It's very quick. They can run an assessment, they get a score, and then it literally assesses the risk of lethality, like how likely it is for the person to be a victim of domestic violence and particularly homicide. And so it's incredibly helpful, and it has been shown to reduce homicide up to 66%. So it's, I'm really happy to report to you that the Royse City Police Department has participated in the LAP training. Our staff does the LAP training for all of the surrounding police departments. So thank you for that. Thank you to your police chief. And we'll continue to enjoy a good relationship there. It's not smooth, it's not perfect, but some of the detectives in the Roy Police Department have just been wonderful to work with. And that's always a relationship that we can strengthen and work more closely together. So we would look forward to that as well. So our sexual assault program, we had about over 300 rape and sexual assault victims sought services at YCC, and we had almost 300 on-scene responses. That's our hospital response team, our victim advocates going out and working with individuals who've been assaulted. So, and then rounding out our outreach, just a lot of case management for individuals who are out of sort of that acute phase of domestic violence and maybe no longer in crisis, but really need ongoing support and case management. So that's been terrific. And then we also, in the past, we've had quite a number of people walking in, instead of calling our crisis line, people walk in to YCC and seek services, which they can still do. It just looks a little different. So what we've seen over the last 6 months is we've seen increases in our crisis line calls, and maybe some of you have noticed or have seen in the media that there's been an increase in domestic violence during the pandemic. And I can attest that that is absolutely accurate. We have seen a huge increase, actually a dramatic increase in demands on our services, our crisis line calls, just the support that's needed, the level of counseling that's needed, crisis intervention, people literally calling from a room in their house, trying to, and our case managers are trying to do crisis intervention on the phone. Very, very challenging, very difficult situations. We're doing a lot of safety planning with people, and actually quite a lot of protective orders, which fortunately the courts moved their protective orders so that we could do them virtually as opposed to in person, and that made a big difference too. But that took about a month and a half to get in place. So ironically, we've seen decreases in shelter numbers and obviously on-site counseling. And what we have learned from our clients is that while the needs have gone up, the demands have gone up, the level of crisis has increased. People are very reluctant to come into a shelter setting because they can't physically distance from one another. It's very difficult, and nobody wants to stay in it's basically a dorm room. Nobody wants to stay in a dorm room, all the time. So that's been a big challenge. I think we're running at about half capacity right now, maybe just over half capacity. Women and children are starting to feel more comfortable coming into shelter, and that's been good because they're getting out of dangerous situations. But big challenges there, whether, do I stay in this abusive situation, or do I, run the risk of going to a congregate shelter and getting a pandemic, getting a virus? And it's just a horrible dichotomy that's been set up. And we've been very fortunate. We've been really, really diligent in our screening and our protocols, and knock on wood, we haven't had any positive COVID cases in shelter yet. So anyway, you can see there's some other of our decreases just because of the pandemic, and we've begun to ramp back up on some of those. So significantly, like I think most nonprofits you're probably familiar with, we have seen a big decrease in our revenue. Our thrift store is a big source, and our child care center are big sources of revenue for the center. And for 3.5 months, we were at zero. So 100% decrease over the previous, a year ago. We've also seen a decrease in business giving and foundation giving. Some of our foundations have shifted to supporting specifically COVID-related needs, and very directly. And I can, as much as I can, communicate that we are experiencing a direct COVID result and increase in demand. It's been frustrating and unfortunate, but I can understand why they would do that. And then, of course, we've canceled our fundraising events, much like many other of the not-for-profits. So we always, we always focus on the client. That's our first and our foremost strength, and we really try to keep that right in the forefront. And this is an example of where we can get people from and to. Just getting them out of very, very dire situations and helping them become fully reliant, fully self-sufficient. And that's been our goal all along, is just to help people get back to self-sufficiency and living their life in a safe and productive way. We've enjoyed a really great relationship over the years with the surrounding cities, and I look forward to continuing that with Roy City as well. So, and I'm happy to take any questions or thoughts if you'd like.
Okay, Council, any comments, questions for Ms. Rose?
Margaret, I have a question. At one time, I believe last year, we asked for some information. Do we collect demographic data? Like, do we know like how many of our citizens are serviced in particularly those top 4? I was thinking when I was looking at it, like the domestic violence shelter, the sexual assault, and the child care. Right. And the victim advocacy. Those are the ones I was particularly looking at.
We do. And Councilmember, what we have done in the past is, I can tell you, we respond quite frequently to Roy, particularly, well, I would say domestic violence and sexual assault, and work with the detectives out there. But our on-scene response and our victim advocates respond to Roy on a regular basis. We do collect demographics. We have not shared them with the city specifically. People tend to be quite transient and mobile these days. And what we've found is that if the numbers are low, the cities are like, hey, we don't have a problem here, And so we've been reluctant to share specific numbers with the cities.
But I think for me, I don't think we're going to have a low number. So it would be a way of advocating for more funding in my mind, not less, but that's maybe just my thoughts. I believe that Roy does have a fair amount of those cases. So I think it would help us justify funding if you want to go that route.
Okay, thank you for that.
Mm-hmm.
So do you have a time limit on how long someone can stay at your shelter?
Our average stay is around 30 days. And we don't kick anybody out, but that's part of the case management, is that we try to work with them to get them into a safe setting, whether that's placement with a family member, an apartment on their own, or a home on their own, or back into their own home if the risk of abuse has been eliminated. So it just depends. Some people need to stay 1 or 2 nights. Other people are there for, 30, 45 days until they can get sort of all the things in place. So, finding a place to rent, if that's the choice of the person, we're absolutely work with what the person wants to do, and help support them in making that happen.
So you said you're only about half full. How many beds do you how many people can you accommodate there?
We have 62 beds, but what we've done is, in theory, we're half full, but by virtue of physical distancing, we're at capacity.
Okay.
Does that make sense? So we've spread people out more, and so we can't take as many. So we're half capacity. We're half full and at capacity, if that makes sense. Yeah.
So do you run solely on donations, basically, in your thrift store? And
the thrift store runs 100% on community donations. Yes.
And your whole business, like your employees that are paid, is that run solely on donations also?
It is not. So about 63% of our budget are federal grants. So the Victim of Crime Act, and the Department of Human Services, so state and federal funding. And our housing program, we get HUD funding from the feds and from the state, through the state. So we have so it's about 2/3 grant driven and 1/3 of our staff and programming completely dependent on charitable giving.
And how big is your staff?
We have about 65 individuals right now, full and part-time staff, and a whole host of volunteers who are chomping at the bit trying to get back at work,
I bet.
Yeah.
Okay.
Great questions. Council, just for the record, what I indicate to you is that over the years, Royse City has in fact been donating to the YCC. They do that at the election of the city council. You have what's called a legislative budget. Obviously, that had been toned down a little bit because of some revenue stream issues. We've had this going in its next budget, but there is a legislative budget in there, and there is a line item in there if in fact the council would like to donate to these nonprofit organizations to help, if you will, buffer those impacts they're having, with the issues that was explained to us. So what I would like you to do is think about that. Obviously, you've asked some great questions. Margaret's provided some really good input, but in the next city council meeting, I'd like you to consider then, I will ask you, would you like to delegate, would you like to donate or grant to the YCC some portion of the legislative budget to assist them in the service they provide to our community? So would you think about that? If you have any more questions for Margaret, please, this is the time to do that, but I'll ask the council to consider that in our next city council meeting.
I would like to second Jan's request for a few more details. That would be very helpful for me.
Okay.
Yeah.
I have one more question, Margaret. What are we seeing from other cities? Is their allocation going up, going down, staying stable? Can you give us information on that?
Sure. I would say it's been pretty stable. I don't know the full history of it. Mayor Dandoy, you may. The WACOG group a number of years ago decided they kind of did a formula based on population and kind of crafted, like the smaller cities obviously give less and the larger cities give more. And those have largely stayed the same over the last 2 or 3 years. So whatever you have in your budget as far as the request there, That those have been consistent across the board. We haven't adjusted those or asked for more from the cities, just what was initially committed to.
Have we seen any of that impacted by COVID, by revenue sources coming into the cities? Maybe Matt, you could answer that. I don't know.
I missed the first part of that question, Councilmember.
Have we seen any of that impacted by COVID? I mean, because we don't know what our revenue streams are as they're not as stable as they've been in the past. So
Yeah, Matt can verify this, but we walked into the budget with the anticipation about $1.7 million of revenue would not be generated. I think we estimated right around 8, 9, 10% of the normal budget we projected would probably not generate. But as you well know, we may not see some of those revenue totals, at least for a few more months, until we start to see what changes. So we've made some adjustments. I think the legislative budget has been reduced to some extent as a result of the projections that we were anticipating, the reduction we were anticipating in revenue.
Yeah, and that particular line item that we would expense that out was reduced by $16,000.
Yeah.
So, but if we wanted to donate to the YCC, we could maybe get money from the beautification fund or something like that.
We would have to get it from resources that we weren't originally expecting, or cutting something else. Like you said, like maybe beautification or something like that. We would also, because it wasn't identified in our budget, we would have to do a study to show that we are that the city receives X amount of dollars from YCC in kind, whatever. But we have to do a study as a municipality. I'm just saying that as a technicality, we can easily do so. Andy Blackburn has done those in the past, but we would just have to do that as well. So
I just feel it's very important. I applaud you, Margaret. I luckily have never had any domestic violence in my family, but what you do is so needed and amazing. And I applaud you and all your employees that do what you do.
Thank you. I very much appreciate that.
thanks for the education too. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks so much for your time. I appreciate all of you, and I don't envy you trying to juggle all this budget during the pandemic. I have my own smaller budget, and I know it's a tough job, and I appreciate everything that you all do as well. So thank you.
Thank you, Mark, and thanks for the presentation. Okay.
Have a good night.
Good night. Thank you. Okay. We now go move to the city managers and council report. Matt, do you have anything you'd like to share with us tonight?
Yeah, so 'tis the season for construction. Jack Parsons will be here starting paving on August 17th, chip seals August 31st, slurry seals today. Sidewalk on 5500. That's a contract that we approved a couple council meetings. They started that contract. Sidewalk on 2700 West and 6000 South. They're also starting that contract as well. Posted something on Facebook, just a map of the city and where we're going with the construction, who's getting the slurry, chip seals, overlays, things like that. That's on Facebook. It was also previously emailed from Brandon Edwards to the council members, I think 2 weeks ago. So you should have that in your emails as well. This Friday, Roy Hillside Senior Center will be doing a shred event, August 21st, 9 to 11 a.m. just out in our front parking lot. So if you have some recyclable papers that you need to get rid of, that you want shredded, feel free to come over. The first recreation football game will be this Saturday. Thank you to Roy Hyde. We're going to be playing the games there, so should be a good event for them. And then I wanted to discuss utility shutoffs. As you know, it's been quite some time since we've had utility shutoffs. Some people has just kind of been MIA and they will not make contact with us. Most cities have actually already resumed shutting utility accounts off. I want to make one point is that the city is very, very willing to work with people, but we need to have contact with them. They need to make payment arrangements or whatever. So we're planning on resuming the utility shutoffs. We're going to be very willing to waive fees or anything like that that we need to. But we need to, like I said, we need to come in contact with people. Our typical shut-off list is around 60 people every other month. We're around 200 people right now
Oh,
with
wow.
non-payment. So some people haven't made utility bill payments since January. It's very important to keep the liquidity in there for multiple purposes, for bonding everything, that we need to keep the cash flow moving in those utility accounts. So anyway, we've sent letters out trying to get people to contact us, but we're planning on resuming that. And then also in your emails for council members, you may have noticed that you've gotten an invite to an open house over at Roy Jr. The new school is about to be open August 24th at 10 a.m. So they'll be doing a ribbon cutting over there. So like to see y'all there. So that's all I have for tonight.
I have a question, Matt.
Sure.
So I took and shared the Facebook post on the map. There were people that wanted to know if there was a time frame that went along with that map so they could know when things were being worked on. And they said it was hard to read the map. I don't know if we've got the best clarity on there. I think it's been shared a couple of times, so it's hard to read. So I don't know if we can double check the copy, and then maybe if we can put a timeline with it so people know when it's happening, not just where.
Okay. Yeah, I'll get with our people and see if we can repost something about that.
Hey, Joe, they will be going door to door when they start in the neighborhoods that they do. They will tag every door.
Okay, that's good to know.
Thanks, Ross. Okay, thanks, Matt. Appreciate that. Council, do you have anything you want to share? Anything you'd like to see be done in the city?
I was just going to tell you that we've been working on our beautification meetings, and we're still looking to put a sign when you come in from Sunset, welcome to Roy City sign, and then we're working on putting a sign on the north end on 1900. And I was going to have Travis Flint, if he was on, talk about our sign that we're going to have put up at the Memorial Park that is going to be going up pretty soon too. I talked to Travis and he said he would give you the update on that. And we're still trying to, encourage people to water and mow their grass and pull their weeds and pick up garbage and trying to keep the city beautiful. I mean, we did get rid of Dr. John, so that's great on the beautification committee.
You're so funny.
So anyway, if Travis is on, he was going to give an update on the sign that's going to go at the Memorial Park.
I'm here. Yeah, I would be glad to. In Memorial Park on the southwest corner of the green space area, we are looking to add a sign that kind of lets people know that where they're at Memorial Park. The beautification committee's been working on it. The sign is complete, and today we received our permit to start putting it up. Right as city council meeting began, I emailed each of you guys the location and what the sign would look like. We will get working on that as soon as possible, as soon as time and other commitments allow. We'll get our cement company in there to pour footings and different things like that, and we'll hope to have that up as soon as possible.
Okay, thank you, Travis. Okay, anybody else like to share a thought?
Got a couple.
Please.
Mayor, first of all, the banners on the street poles look great. Yep. And so I just want to say thank you to all of you for approving that project. If it gets us to keep some dollars home, then it'll be well worth it. Also, would like to share that there's a couple of parcels of property that are either under negotiation or have been negotiated for new business. And so I just want you to know that there's a couple of new businesses that have shown a real interest in Roy. And then thirdly, one of my other assignments, besides economic and parks and rec, is mosquitoes. And we purchased the mosquito abatement board for Weaver County, purchased a drone that will help us reach those hard to get to mosquitoes that live along the riverways, the canalways, and this drone cost $23,000. But they expect in manpower alone, it'll save almost $3,000 a year. And so anyway, thought I'd let you know that those are always fun meetings to go to where we talk about mosquitoes. Anyway, that's it.
Thank you.
Do you have
Brian, for
a fly
attending the
machine?
mosquito.
I wish
Sounds
they had a thing that could go around and squirt for flies, because I hate flies this time of year.
Sounds about as interesting as sewer board meeting.
Yeah. Anybody else? Okay, let me just, go ahead.
Any those businesses you just talked about, Brian, is there anything you can share, maybe where or what businesses, or is that still a little too premature?
Oh, that's a fair question. You know what? I'll share, and then that way I can tell people I was pressured into it.
You can blame it on us or me.
I do everything else, so I'm kidding. Anyway, the new Firestone, or the old Firestone building, is, I believe the whole building's gonna come down. And you're gonna get yourself a new Mountain America credit union that wants to go there. You've also got the old Jesse Jeans is going to be a restaurant. And there's also, in addition, right next to Boost Mobile, there's a new restaurant going in there that they were hoping to get open this week. And it's called Spanglish. And its owners are out of Layton. And they're expanding. So things are looking up. That will, again, slowly but surely change the face of Roy's Main Street.
Is that Spanglish, I assume, is Mexican restaurant?
Mexican American.
Spanish
Mexican
and English.
American.
English.
Oh, shut up, Joe. That was probably a dumb question, huh? Do they serve German food there?
There are no dumb questions.
So is that Firestone, is it gonna take out that old sushi building too next to it? I'm hoping to expand that Mountain America.
I don't think it's been purchased yet.
Okay,
They're gonna go deep. And if you go by there, you'll notice that they've started staging, but they're gonna go deep on that property.
That's a deep property.
So they'll probably flip. I don't know. I would suspect they would flip the building sideways.
right. Well, that's good news.
With the drive up in the back, I think.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Okay, anything else, council?
It is good news.
One of the questions I wanted to bring up, it seems to cycle through a topic of discussion amongst the citizens, is Utopia. It seems like it's another topic of discussion out there in the internet world. I know it's been that way several other times. Was the city ever officially approached by Utopia to get on to the program?
I can answer that. The city was involved initially in the beginning of it, and we were one of many of the initial cities, but there came down a point in time where there was a vote taken that we could either be part of it or we could opt out. And the city, I believe it was a 3-2 vote at the time, voted to opt out.
That's what I was thinking. What was the biggest reason? Because the expense? Because if my understanding with Utopia is if the take rate's not high enough by the citizens, the city is left paying the expenses for the infrastructure, which means that now is bared the burden by all the citizens versus those that are using it.
I think a lot of it had to do with some very influential people from two companies, Comcast and Quest.
CenturyLink
came, and yeah, CenturyLink, and they made it a point to appear at our council meeting. The state legislature also enacted some type of actions that made it really difficult, and I think it kind of limited the ability to expand Utopia, if I remember right. And so I think there was a concern with Roy that we might get stuck with something really high if there wasn't the ability to expand like it initially had been planned. So I think I go back, but because that was a long time ago, but I do know we were one of the initial cities involved in the planning and going forward with that.
All right. Well, and that's why I say there's been a lot of discussion. You know, people are saying that the city needs to get it. I respect the fact that the citizens probably need it. I don't know that it's totally up to the city to provide that. I don't know if that's something would classify as a necessary expenditure for us. I always worry about putting the city on the hook for expenses when it doesn't benefit the entire city. It only benefits certain portions of the city, those that are taking advantage of it. But
Councilman Paul, how about we do this? I think from the time that Andy was engaged in this process to now, their dynamics may have changed. How about Matt and I reach out to Utopia's leadership, invite them to come in and do at least a presentation to council of how it's supposed to work. I think a modern look at the process may be appropriate. At least you'll know what's out there, you'll know what it costs, and more importantly, what the risks are. Then I think this council could basically make a much more informed decision about whether we move forward or whether or not we don't. But I'll tell you, if it means that we have to put it on the ballot box because the cost is pretty healthy, then I say put it on the ballot and let the voters decide. But at least you should know what's out there and what's available.
I like that idea because I haven't heard of anything recently, but I know some cities that were originally involved in it. It costs the city an extreme amount of money. And I wouldn't want to put all the taxpayers on the hook for that if it didn't benefit everybody. So I appreciate your thought of looking into that, Mayor.
Okay.
I'd like to add to that too. There's also other companies that provide the same fiber as Utopia. Cities to our south, I know a couple of them are signed up with Utopia. I know one up north did more of a crowdfunding mechanism. So people that wanted it, they got to pay for it. But I would also want to add that if we do something in the future, we would want to RFP it to make sure that we're going to get the best price and according to our purchasing policy.
Yeah, that's perfect.
Yeah. That's why you're the finance man, Matt. And Camille.
Okay, good comment. Anything else, council, you'd like to share before? Okay, let me just do a couple of things. Just first, I appreciate the input. Council, each one of you are on committees, whether it be the Arts Committee or whether or not be some other kind of beautification committee, or you're involved in the economic development or other things. Let's use this forum as an opportunity to share us and update us where we are and what's going on. I think as a committee member, by sharing this information, whether we do it through the emails or whether we do it through live council meetings, is very beneficial. There are things going on that you're involved in, and I think it'd be fair and it should be right that all the council members and even the public, for that matter, understand what's involved and what you're doing and how it's influencing us. That would be very helpful. I will indicate to you, take a look at the Adopt a Bench program. Travis and company are working. I like it. I'm going to participate in it. I hope you consider it, but I think it's a wonderful opportunity to be involved in terms of making a difference in our parks and on our trail system, in helping with some benches and stuff that'll make a difference. And it's kind of an exciting program, so I offer you to do that. And I want to give a kudos to both Carl and Craig and their teams. Roy had a tough fire, as you well know, on the north end. Big debate. It started in West Haven, traveled through Weber County, and then dropped right in the middle of Roy. And Roy had to fight off a serious fire, and needless to say, it created a lot of challenges. But it was refreshing to me to go out there and drive by. And I just did a drive by. Those guys are professionals. I didn't want to bother them, but they were actually handling that very effectively. I think both the police and the fire department did a really superior job dealing with that issue. As you may be aware, there was a couple of buildings damaged, a number of vehicles were damaged, but it could have been a lot worse. And that was a tough fire for them to do, and they did a great job. So I wish I want to take my hat off to those two organizations that truly made a big difference. With that then, Council, anything else you want to share before we move into the last conversation, which is discussion items? Okay. Hearing none, let's go ahead and we have a discussion. I think, Randy, you're going to lead the conversation in terms of a SWOT analysis. Maybe you can talk to us a little bit about that and then give us your thoughts on that. Go ahead.
I was on mute, sorry. Thanks, Mayor. Council, what we want to do tonight is we want to start the process with you and look at preparing our economic development strategic plan. The administration and the Economic Development Committee felt like what we need to move forward with economic development is a plan. And the purposes of the plan is to assist the administration and the council as to where we should focus our economic development energy. We want to put a plan together that ensures that the city staff and our private partners are working together towards the same goals. So this becomes a roadmap, if you will, for us moving forward with economic development. It's not just the downtown we're looking at. This economic development plan, we look at all of Roy City. So there are many areas in which we can focus on economic development. And not just the downtown. So the goal of the plan would be to address any area within the community that we believe we can increase the wealth of the city, because what economic development's primary purpose is to assist the city in creating new revenues that will help you provide the services that you need to for your citizens and that your citizens demand. So as we move forward with this, we're going to look at those opportunities. What are our economic advantages? What are the opportunities that we have for improvement? And also, where can we attract new investment within the community and how we go about and do that? So at the end result would be have that plan that helps ensure that economic growth within Roy creates the opportunities and lifestyle improvements for the residents and businesses. Basically, the plan framework is 5 items. We work on a vision statement. We work on what is going to be our mission for economic development. What are the goals and objectives? What are our strategies to accomplish those goals? And what are the actions that we need to undertake? The plan will address where we are now, where are we going, what will get in our way, what do we need to do to get where we want to go, and how are we doing? So the plan will be a living document. The goal will be that once the plan's developed, the goal would be to review it each year. The appropriate time to review that would probably, as you're putting your budget together for the next fiscal year, look at the goals and objectives and finance based upon those goals and objectives, particularly with the redevelopment budget, since the Redevelopment Agency has been designated as the engine to run economic development within the city. There is public involvement in here, and what we want to do is, first of all, it's recommended that we utilize the Business Advisory Board to work with that citizen group to help us with setting this plan in place. We also want city council input, and we'll be coming back to you over the next couple of months with portions of that plan. Tonight, we want to talk a little bit about our strengths and weaknesses. Next meeting, we'll talk about opportunities and threats. And then the final meeting is we want to talk about goals and objectives. So there will be involvement with the city council as we move forward. We'll also have a SWOT analysis with the key administrative staff. And then today, the Economic Development Committee recommends that one of the things we do a public survey on economic development. So the goal will be to come up with some questions, and we're asking the council's input on these questions that relate to economic development. We'll then hire a professional survey company to undertake this survey and to then give us an opinion of how the public feels about economic development and the direction that we should be going with economic development. So one of the things we're asking the council to do, if you can take some time over the next couple of weeks to think about some of those economic development questions that you would like to ask the public, then we'll compile those questions. Matt is working on the RFP process. This will be funded in the RDA budget. We have money within the RDA budget in professional and technical services to fund this survey. And we'll put that out. And hopefully, as we get to the point of the plan where we're talking about goals and objectives, we'll have some input from the public as to what we should be doing and how we should focus on economic development. So that's kind of where we're going with this, and that's kind of the direction we want to go. So we think by doing the survey and using the Business Advisory Board, as well as yourself, we'll get the input that we need to come up with a plan that we can get everybody aligned to. The key in economic development is we need alignment and we need commitment, and that equals success. So the purposes of the plan is to help get us aligned, and then we want to be committed to the plan, and hopefully we'll see success as we move forward. So tonight, what I like to talk about, what I like to have discussion with the council is I like to talk a little bit about the strengths and weaknesses. In your packet, the mayor has been so kind to do this analysis, and he included his strengths and weaknesses and challenges. He also included his opportunities and threats, and just for the sake of time, we only want to talk about strengths and weaknesses today. So maybe you could take a few minutes, and if you've got a pen and paper in front of you, maybe we could take a few minutes and maybe you could write down for us what you think are the 5 or 6 strengths when you think of Royse City. We did this with the Business Advisory Board 2 weeks ago, and while you're thinking about this, let me share some of those items that they came up with as far as the strengths as you think about these. And then what I'd like to do is give each council member an opportunity to maybe share with us those 5 or 6 items that you have come up with about strengths within Royse City. The Business Advisory Committee board felt like strengths included community pride. They felt like that was a good strength of Royse City. They felt like there is a good working relationship between the council and the administrative staff, and that there's a desire to try to improve the city. They also said that Royse City has easy access. Even though the access is congested, it's still easy to get in and out of Roy. They felt the housing stock was affordable, which was a good strength for Royse City. They felt good about the public safety that's being provided to the city. And they felt like the distance to schools is a positive thing. Now, I've shared with you the 6 top things that came, and most of the committee had these items that were brought up in their presentation. So with that, maybe if anybody's ready, I've got this, by the way, I'm recording this on my digital recorder, so I don't have to sit and write everything you say. And then what we'll do is we'll take your comments, we'll take the comments of the others, and we'll try to put a list together of the common strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats that everybody comes up with. And that'll be our starting point of where are we now and also a leap into where do we want to go. So with that, any council member that's ready to share, I just turn the time over to you to go ahead and do that.
I would say one of the things that makes our city great is our departments, our city staff and employees. I truly think they have the best interest of the citizens and the city at heart.
Okay. Anyone else?
Yeah. Our location to Hill Air Force Base.
So do you mean like, would this be a strength? I mean, like, you mean like our parks and our aquatic center and, I mean, things that bring people to Roy?
Absolutely.
Because, I mean, we are known for our aquatic center. I mean, probably had the hottest summer we've had in years and we can't even go swimming. And but you know, I just think we have a great parks department. Plus we have a lot of parks. Most cities don't have as many parks as we have. And Roy Days, our big celebration of Roy Days next to Weaver County Fair, brings in more people to our city. And I think we have the best school support. We're one of the few schools that only has Roy City basically that feeds into its school. I mean, there's a few kids that, you know, get boundary exceptions from Hooper and West Haven, but I mean, if we could have everybody at Roy High at our football game this Friday, it would be standing room only. But even when we used to lose 40-0 at halftime, that stadium was still packed. We just have the best community support for all of our school programs, in my opinion.
Yeah, these are great issues because these are quality of life issues. And when companies or businesses are looking to locate into a community, one of the most important things they look at is the quality of life, because when they hire employees, they want to make sure those employees are happy where they live. So yes, those types of things are really good. Anything else?
Follow up on that. I believe that aside from the schools and the spirit associated with that, there is a very strong community feel and pride. You'll hear people talk about being Roy boys or Roy girls, whether or not it's related to schooling or not, but it's a sense of cohesiveness. And there's individual community feel on neighborhoods, but that does not take precedence over the unified feeling of the Roy cohesiveness. And so that community feel is broader than just school, and it's broader than just individual areas. And that's what I think is so important about Roy. One of our best features.
Good. Other suggestions or comments that you have?
I think I gave my fair share. I think some of these other people need to come up with some. Well, to where I've lived in Roy, you know, for so many years, I just think and I have a lot of friends that have lived in Roy. It's a place where people come and stay for a long time. And I think our public safety in like our department, fire department, our police department, and I mean, I can't sleep out in the front yard like I used to on 4800 at my friend's house, but I still feel pretty safe in Roy and know that when we need our police department, they are there. And at Roy High, we have a very diverse student body over there, and not like any other school, I feel, in the district. And I just think it's very welcoming, and we have a lot of kids that transfer into Roy, and I think that our schools are fantastic in the school district, and especially in Roy City.
I think one of our strengths is demographic diversity, not only race, but income and quality of life. We have a vast diversity in Roy, and I think that leads to strong community pride and brings a lot of people together. I see more people working together in our community than I do in different communities from various groups. very diverse community, which is a strength of ours.
Okay. Don't want to stop the flow before we go on to our next one. Any other thoughts, comments that you have on strengths of Roy City?
We have a lot of grocery stores. Not very many cities have as many grocery stores in, 40,000 people that we have. So.
Okay. Anybody else?
We have Burger Bar.
Yeah, you know what? I have to laugh about that comment. When your brother was on the council back when I was city manager, I'll never forget the one thing he said to me. He said, "Randy, you can do anything you want as far as economic development goes, but don't you ever remove Burger Bar from this community." So that is true. Burger Bar is something that you don't see in a lot of communities.
Exactly.
Well, let's take a few minutes. Mayor, do you have any comments that you'd like to add as far as some of your strengths that you pointed out?
No, actually, you can see the list. It's a pretty lengthy list. And I think the additions that were provided both by the council tonight as well as the BAB that really enhances this list. And I think that's important. I think it's a good bedrock to build on when we start to recognize the strengths we do bring to the table. And so
I would add one thing. Not the mayor added the senior program. I was going to look, but we have the Boys and Girls Club here in Roy, which is a great program and asset to the community. So we're taking care of the young and we're taking care of the old with the senior center and the Boys and Girls Club, which they're again community involvement. We're watching out for those in our community.
Yeah, great comment.
Yep.
Right.
Well, then let's focus on maybe some of the weaknesses. While you're thinking about that, again, the mayor gave us quite an extensive list, and it's interesting that even some of the comments that came from our business advisory board kind of follow along with that. So while you're thinking about that, and you can see the mayor's list here, let me share with you what the business advisory board came up. And again, what I took from their list are the common things they brought up, because I think if we can focus on, if everybody says the same thing, then to me, it needs to be part of what we consider. They talked about a weakness being traffic. And I think that weakness, that could also be a strength, but they felt like the traffic, particularly in the 5600 and 1900 West, is congested and could cause problems. They brought out the idea that they believe some of the community is resistant to changing. That new ideas are not always considered. They brought up the idea that there's commercial blight. They indicated that the community is old and dated, and that it needs to be upgraded or updated. They mentioned that there is not a lot of attraction of large businesses other than grocery stores. They indicated that sometimes there can be a problem with social media. They mentioned that they feel that there is no vision within the community, that there needs to be, an opportunity for to look at vision. And they also indicated that there's still a problem with the east-west accessibility across the tracks. Excuse me. Those were the common things that they brought up. So now let me turn to the council and find out what you believe are some of the weaknesses within the community. And again, don't hold back. Sorry, I swallowed a nut a few minutes ago.
Well, I think one of the weaknesses is we don't have any good old sit down restaurants.
Okay.
That people we have a lot of fast food restaurants and we have B's, but can I tell you how many citizens are always saying, when are we going to get a good family steakhouse or somewhere so we don't have to go to neighboring cities to eat?
I thought you were going to say an Olive Garden.
Yeah. Like a Sizzler or I don't know.
Okay.
We could get something, but.
Other thoughts?
I wish we had another viaduct like on 4,000. I
That
wish
plays
we had,
that
yeah,
plays into
I
the
mean,
traffic and
it's just gonna
accessibility.
get worse. I mean, on my way home from Fremont today and all the building that's coming and it's just gonna get crazier and crazier. Is that more building in West Haven and they all have to come through Roy, most of them. And I just wish whenever there's a train stuck on the tracks on 4800, it's just a nightmare.
Affordable housing's one of our weaknesses. I have 2 adult daughters. One's engaged, one probably headed that direction. And unfortunately, both of them are looking at moving out of Roy, even though they would love to stay here. You can't find the housing in Roy that's in their price range for newlyweds.
Well, then they need to go north to Tremont because my daughter-in-law's a real estate agent and that's where the hot homes are now. Because Roy, you have a house up for sale and it's gone in a week because it is one of the lower priced cities, but housing's just crazy right now. I'm just grateful all my kids bought a house when they did because I do feel bad for young married couples nowadays. You can't even buy a condo for under $200,000.
Well, and my children are still the ones that, have the dream of a bigger house, bigger yard, have a garden.
Right. That's how kids are now these days. So.
Other
can't think
ideas on
I
weaknesses?
can't think of very many more weaknesses. I mean,
Aging infrastructure, it was talked about in
Right.
council meeting. We need a better strategic plan and funding for our infrastructure. I know there's stuff in the works, but you think about the age of the city and the pipes in the road and there's a lot that we could have to replace in the very near future.
Okay.
yeah. I wish we had another street sweeper, but I know we're going to do something next year to keep our streets cleaner. That's one of our weaknesses, but that has nothing to do with our street department because they only can do what they can do with one street sweeper. So hopefully we can get on with that program next year and hire that company to come in and keep our streets clean.
We're going to buy Matt a broom.
Well, no comment.
Not for transportation either.
That's what I was going to say.
I read your mind.
Other ideas that you have?
I mean, one of the things we're faced with, and it kind of all rolls up, that at some point, unless if economic development or income into the city goes up, we're going to be at a budget shortfall, which it's a brick wall we're going to hit in the next few years. We've done well to manage to this point, but I don't know that in the current situation, we can continue to manage to that without attracting some big business.
Yeah, I'm thinking just keeping, I mean, I'm glad that Firestone is going to be torn down and something new is going to be put in there. But just like Dr. John's, and then the Village Inn, and I just hate to see buildings, are vacated and then I don't know if we're in charge of going and weed eating and mowing and keeping the weeds down just to make it look better because it's right when people come into town and it's just an eyesore. So I don't know if we have that in our budget for our employees to take care of that or if it's up to, I don't know, the property owners, but I just hate when buildings are vacated and then they just look horrible. And then everybody on 1900 can see them when they come into Roy.
Okay. Other
But our
comments?
compliance officer works on that, right, Mayor?
That's correct. Code enforcement handles the compliance issues
Yeah.
to the ordinance you're talking about. The challenge has always been, and that's been discussed in a couple of council meetings, or councils.
Takes a
do
lot
we have
of time.
enough? Should there be more than 2? or it should be more than one. We only got one that's doing it.
He does a great job, but he definitely has
He
a
sure
lot,
does.
he has a lot
Yeah,
to
he,
do for one.
he has his hands full for sure. So Jan, now that have you been listening? Do you know what are your weaknesses, do you think, in Roy City?
No, I think they've been discussed well. I've been listening. I'm sorry I had a connection problem there for a bit, but.
Okay.
Okay, is there any other comments from any of the council members on the weaknesses? Mayor, do you have any comment you'd like to add on your list?
No, just for clarification, a couple of things to maybe consider, and this surely could be part of the strategic strategy plan. I talk about no process improvement program, and what that means is that do we want to consider incentivizing our employees to come up with more creative ways by which we can save money? And equally important with the process improvement strategy plan, find some recognition or some awards. Those people come up with some brilliant changes in either our policies or our procedures that can really make a difference. Sometimes if you initiate a process improvement strategy plan and you use that as an incentive, it can really make a big difference in creating, if you will, a bit more better improvements in our city. The other one I talked about, and it might have been a little controversial if you read through it, it talks about no resident or business compliant or complaint procedures. I will tell you, Matt and I get complaints all the time. If they're not phone calls, they're definitely emails. And now I've got a big file of them, I just stack them. And so we address those as they come in, but recognize the fact is if a resident or a business owner has a complaint within the city, I would dare say that probably 1 out of 20 will take the initiative to bring it to our attention. The others will typically not like it and oftentimes not say anything about it. Maybe it's because they don't know how, or maybe it's because they just don't want to get in confrontation. And so they just simply, I have a concern, but I don't know how to voice my concern. If in fact, one thing we may want to do is maybe look at having a way to have some feedback. Does the city manager need feedback in terms of how well he's doing in the eyes of the residents? If there is a concern, can he look at the concern and simply say, yeah, okay, here's some things I can do to help change that, or the mayor or the council. But if you don't have any feedback on that, if you don't know that it exists, it's hard to make any appropriate changes. And so by establishing maybe a more formalized complaint process, we might be able to capture some of that and use that as a feedback mechanism to help make some adjustments within our policies or maybe our procedures, or equally important, just how we intertwine with the residents. And so I made comments on those. I think there's some opportunities there, but those may be some areas that you may have some questions if you look through my list.
Mayor, I like your thoughts on a formal complaint process, as opposed to, I think we sometimes get a lot of feedback on our citizens of Roy that is not a good format at all.
Right.
Simply because it becomes just an anonymous complaint forum.
Right.
And so I like the possibility of doing it in a more formal way. I think we would get a more authentic way of addressing it.
That's something you might want to think about as we evolve this strategy plan, is to say we're going to implement some things, and then through that implementation, does it work? Is it working? And one of the ways you can do that is put a feedback loop into the process that provides us an avenue by which it simply says we're making this adjustment, and with that adjustment, do the people like it or not like that adjustments? And let's be creative. The fact is, if we're doing something that's not right, let's back up. I think one of the biggest troubles we find with some governments is the fact is once they make a decision, they're not willing to simply step back and reevaluate. They just think that sometimes what I made a decision or the council makes a decision, that's how it is, but it doesn't have to be that way. But I think we can look at some ways by which we can listen to the residents and provide some feedback from them, and then let's see how we can learn from that. That's all I got on it, Randy.
Any other final comments from anybody before we conclude this? Okay, so the next, when we meet in 2 weeks from now, Matt, I'm assuming you're going to have a meeting in 2 weeks, but when we meet again, what we want to talk about now would be the opportunities and threats that there are to the city. In addition to that, I will send out an email on this, but I want to remind you that we do want to get your questions back in regarding to what you would like to see included in that economic development survey that we'll send out to the individuals within the community. Again, we'll want to make sure the survey prorates to the citizens. Our guess is there'll probably be there's 13 districts. There'd probably be about 750 residents that would be approached about the questions. And once we got your questions, I've been given an assignment to also put some of my questions together. Again, Matt will prepare an RFP. We'll put that out for bid, and then we'll meet with the professional survey group and go over those questions and their format. And then we'll come back and update you on when that survey is going to be done, what's the format. We'll share with you the questionnaire and that information so that you will have that information in case you get any calls from any of your constituents wanting to know what it's about and what we're going. But we felt that was a very good way to get at least some idea from the public regarding what they feel is important in the area of economic development. And I'll send you out an email just to remind you to put those questions together. And you can either email those back to me, you'll have my email, or you can email them back to Matt, however you feel comfortable to do. So with that, I've got your comments. I think it's interesting that some of these are, again, with what the Business Advisory Board came up with. And so this is the first of probably 4 meetings we're going to want with the council to move forward with the Economic Development Strategy Plan. Our goal is to try to get this completed by the end of the year so that it can become a working document that you can have as you put together your budget for next fiscal year. So with that, I appreciate your time, and that completes what I wanted to talk about with the council tonight.
Thank you. Appreciate it, Randy. Okay. Council, anything else you'd like to share before we go for a motion to adjourn? Okay, thank you for everybody that's helped us put this together. Camille, great discussion on budgeting. We appreciate, Randy, the input you've given us. Appreciate that. I think we even appreciate the public comments. That's always been good because we think it's important to do that. And thank you for opening us up with their moment of silence and pledge of allegiance. We appreciate that. And thanks for joining us tonight. Council, we got a lot to consider, a lot of things taking place. If you have any concerns, please don't hesitate to reach out. But I see, and it looks like everybody is healthy. That's a good thing. By the way, the trend lines for the state as well as the county are showing some positive motion in terms of reducing its pandemic impact. I hope someday over the next few months we'll get ourselves back to something new, normal, whatever that normal might be. Assuming there's no more input, there are no more comments, do I have a motion then to adjourn?
I so moved to adjourn.
Okay, Jan, I got a motion to adjourn. Do I have a second?
I'll
Ryan?
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Okay, we're adjourned. Thank you. Be safe, and we'll stay in touch.
Okay, thank you, Mayor.
And thanks, Morgan, for putting this together.
Yes, thank you.
Thanks, Morgan. Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.